Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I'm back for our Roxy Journal of Stitchery treasure hunt project. And I've got a piece today that's combining a couple of the prompts, so the favourite fabrics and the love or heart prompt. So I'm wanting to make a piece for my Burgundy Bonheur panel, which I'll come to in a moment, and using English paper piecing as my style to make my hexagon, but also my outer circle. And I'm going to be using my Eppiflex templates, which are a great little Australian invention. I'm not sponsored by them. I didn't receive the products free. I paid for them with my own money, but I just think they're fantastic products that are reusable. They're also recyclable, but you can get so many uses out of them. I've been using these hexagons so many times over and over again, and they're just really fabulous to use. But I'll share a bit more about them because I think they are a great tool. So we will be coming back to that later, but I'm planning to do a piece where I'm going to probably couch down thread to spell out joie de vivre, which in French is sort of love of life, essentially, like passion for life, love of life. It's that je ne sais quoi, as they might say, that I don't quite know what, but it's that, that real joy in life and love of life. So I thought that would be absolutely perfect for this piece. Let me just move this piece out of the way for a moment. I've got the ironing board next to me because that will come in handy later. So I have decided to use this blanket. Sorry, I just bumped the table, which is where the stand is. I'm filming not in my normal spot because I'm on holidays at the moment, which is lovely, in beautiful Alpine Victoria in Bright. But I want to use this blanket, which was recently unearthed from the cellar of Alex's parents. And it's the blanket that Alex's mum, Betty, travelled out from Austria after the war, all the way to Australia, and they were actually going to put it out in their hard rubbish collection, but I saved it, and I think it is a treasure. It absolutely is. And originally I was thinking, when we discovered the monogram, I thought, do I just cut that out and put that in my one of my pieces? But I've decided that I want to actually keep the blanket in its entirety, but I want to sort of bring layers to it. So I'm planning to layer my Burgundy Bonheur piece on it. So I think the only section that you'll probably end up seeing of the actual blanket itself will be the section immediately around this monogram, and then I'm planning to probably use calico and other fabrics to layer over the top, but I think it will just give me a really nice weight to be stitching into, and I'm thinking ultimately that this will be a piece that will hang down the back of a settee or sofa that's in our upstairs sort of lounge room. It's the sort of room immediately off my craft room, and I thought it would be a lovely piece there, and that way I can have a lot of space to play with, because I think there's a lot that I'm going to want to make. I've got so many beautiful fabrics, so many ideas, so I didn't want to be constrained just by a small frame, which was what I was originally thinking. So we'll come back to this. I'm planning to do a cutout, I think, of a heart around the monogram, which Betty stitched herself, so Elizabetta with her surname. So coming back to our English paper piecing, which will be one of the panels, I've got some calico, which I picked up actually just from the local op shop here. I got masses of it. In fact, they still had a lot more left, so I might even go back for it because I washed it up and it's come up beautifully, and it's just a really lovely weight of calico. And I like recycling rather than buying things new. So let me show you the English paper piecing, except using the plastic Eppiflex templates. So I'll show you first of all on one of the hexagons, which I have done in other videos, but let me just give you a quick little demo here. So I will start on, just managed to move one of my pieces. I'll just move that out of the way. So I'll just cut myself a little section of this fabric. I have lots of this fabric, but I think it's a sweet little fabric. And so what I then do, and the great thing with these templates is you can see through them. So for example, if you did want to have that little flower at the center here, then you absolutely could have it that direction. Travis is going for a trot around the lounge room. I think he's heard something outside. He's wanting to investigate what's going on. So if you hear that little tap, 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 it's not someone doing tap dancing. It's just lovely little Travis, the dog, going to check out what's happening. So I'm just cutting around the shape, leaving myself a little margin. And I always keep my little scraps because I love using those as well. And then I'm going to use the back of my book here because I can wipe it down. It's one of those wipeable covers. And I'm just going to put a little bit of Yoo-hoo glue, just a regular glue. Some people use the expensive English paper piecing glue, but I just use my standard Yoo-hoo, which works very well. I then put my little template in the middle, and then I proceed to fold the pieces down. So you can use these templates as well, just straight away stitching, putting the little basting stitch in. But I find this way is pretty easy for me. So I just do these first up, and I usually give them a little press down at this point, and then just leave the glue to dry. So I'll just pop that one up out there. And then these ones, I haven't actually used this shape before, so this will be my first time using them, but I've proceeded to make some and get them ready, but I'll just show you the technique on these ones as well. So what we want to do is just start off with a piece of fabric about the right size. With these ones, I find it's easier just to put two little bits of glue on them just to hold them to the fabric while you're cutting around it. So just push it down into the fabric, and then you just want to cut yourself. And at first I thought you'd have to do sort of cuts in to be able to get it to shape around the curves, but it actually works fine. You don't have to do any of the little sort of corner cuts or other things. I'll show you in a moment. Keep the strips. Okay, so I'm just going to put some glue on around the edges like that, and then I'm going to fold up the bottom edge, and so it is a curve, but it folds in fine. It's not sort of a big enough curve that you do need to do the little cut in sort of stitches, or not stitches, cut in sort of snips. And then at the end, I just make sure I angle the fabric in slightly so that when you fold it over, and I just make sure I run my fingers down and make sure that it's all tightly folded over. And then I put two little dobs of glue on either end, and just fold those over. So just by having them slightly angled in when when you're folding them up at that end will mean they don't stick out. And then as you can see, you get a lovely little shape. So again, I just give it a push down to make sure it's all in place. And then I'll show you this one. So for this one, I'm wanting to have it sitting sort of as evenly as possible across this little design here, so that I've got the sort of the two bars in approximately the same place. And the great thing is you can really line it up, and even using the lines on the template, you can get it pretty even for where you would want it to be. And you can obviously do that from the back as well. So I'm just going to get a little bit of glue on just so it holds in place. And then I'm just going to position it so it's as even as possible. And you can even see through to the design on the other side. So if you're wanting to capture a particular flower or something like that, it would be perfect for that. So again, we just cut around it. Should have probably ironed the fabric. It's got a little crease in it, but that's okay. It will still do the job. Okay. And then just going to put a bit of glue around it. And then just going to fold it up. So I hope you're having a great day or a great evening wherever you are. It's been a beautiful sunny day, actually hot. I've been in a t-shirt. First day of spring here in Australia. Oops, I might just need to put a tiny bit more glue on. Get rid of my scraps again. I've actually got an idea for my little scraps for this project as well, so we'll come back to that. I think that can definitely be favourite fabrics, because when you've got favourite fabrics, you don't even let the small scraps go in the bin. Well, I don't. I keep them. I like doing micro mosaics with fabric. So again, I just angled the ends in a bit when I was folding them, and then just put a bit of extra glue on and just fold those over, and then give it a little push down, and then we can put that to the side. So I'll just get rid of my Yoo-hoo glue so it doesn't fall over. Pop that up there. And then we will bring this back into range. I've already taken some of the plastics and done the stitching on some of them. So let me just find where I've got two that I haven't yet taken out. So as you can see, these are the ones that I glued earlier. And what I like to do first is just give them a quick iron before I start the process of stitching and unlocking them from their template. So just going to do this, and then I'll get myself a piece of thread. Might actually just do it on one so you don't get too bored watching it. So I'll just get myself a matching thread, not that it matters because we're not actually going to see it on the front. Oh, and I do have to show you my little thread holder. If you watched my op shop haul video for Thrifty Thursday, you would have seen I got this little, what I think was probably a cosmetic case maybe, or a jewellery case, probably a cosmetic case. And it's the perfect size for my little threads, and it's got little individual compartments that hold all these threads perfectly in place. So I am super pleased with that. Okay, back to the task at hand, Christine. Don't get excited about your thrifty finds. So I'm just going to get myself a nice little needle here, and just going to tie a knot in the end, doing our favourite knotting technique. The only thing I find it doesn't work well on is like wools or bobbly sort of threads. So what I'm going to do here is come up just below where one of the joins at the end is, and pierce the fabric underneath where the join is, and then I'll just get rid of my little end because we don't need that poking out. Get rid of that bit of thread. So I've done a stitch catching from below to above where the join in the fold over is in the fabric, and I'm going to just do a couple of little stitches here because they just help to hold the ends in place, and even when you flick the plastic out, it just helps it to hold its shape. And then I'm going to come over, so with the thread running still, and put some little stitches the same way over here without catching my thread. So I'm just using a regular sort of sewing thread here to do this. You want something strong, so polyester is better than cotton. So you just want to capture both layers and get them held nice and tight around the plastic. The great thing is because it's a sturdy plastic, the needle doesn't go through. With English paper piecing, you have to be careful if you're using paper or card not to pierce it. So once I've got a few stitches in there and that's held nice and securely, I'm then going to just use a little up and down sort of running stitch down one side. So I'm just going up and down, sort of quite spaced out, I guess. And then I'm going to pop up at the other end, and I'm going to repeat the procedure of just putting those anchoring stitches in to hold the two layers, or the folded over bit, to make it sure it's nice and tight with the other bit of fabric, because you're wanting to just hold that corner nice and square. Well, it's not perfectly square because it's a circle, but or a rounded shape, but you know what I mean. So we're going to do that on this side, so just 3 stitches or so, and then I'll take my little running stitch back down here. With some of them I just did the stitches at either end, but it's actually easier just to keep the thread going rather than having to tie it off at each end. And I think maybe this running stitch as well just helps to hold the shape. And then I'm going to put a final stitch in at this end just to hold that in shape as well, and tie it off nice and securely. Snip it off. And then I'll give it another quick little iron, because that can help just to make sure your edges are nicely shaped. And I think it just makes the template a bit more flexible. And then I'm going to get my knitting needle. So this is just a long wooden knitting needle. And I just use that to just run around and lift the tiny little bit of Yoo-hoo glue that's on it. And if anything's sort of sticking down, this will just help lift it without actually putting any holes in the fabric. So I just want to get into those little corners at that end and at this end. And then the great thing with these templates is they have a little hole here, so you can actually also get your knitting needle underneath as well. Because if you'll remember, we just put a dot of glue underneath also. Now with your knitting needle under there, you can actually start to pull it out. Now, did I loosen up this side? I think I did. Yep, there we go. And don't worry if it sort of seems to be pulling a little bit out of shape. It's all going to be okay, because you've got that little basting stitch holding it in place. So you might think, oh, that looks a bit misshapen, but no, it's all going to spring back into perfect form. So as you can see, it's still got the glue on it. I just reuse them. You can wash them at this point, because the glue's just sort of dried onto it, and it's not creating anything particularly thick. I just reuse them, so I put them back into my container at that point, and they're ready to go again. So as you can see, like that, and then at this point I will just give it another quick iron just to get it sitting perfectly flat again, particularly if you're not going to be using it straight away and you just want to keep it in its pristine form. So I can take that last little tail bit of thread off as well, and there you go. That is as easy as the Eppiflex templates make it. And I do have other ones, which I think I will also do another video making some shapes. So I think I've got these ones. Sorry, I'll hold them against my hand so you can actually see them. And then I've also got these, I think they're called coffins, which isn't a nice name, but I think they would be lovely to use as well. And I've also got little circles also, which I've already made a couple of ones up. So what I usually do is do a big batch of things and just have the shapes, and then I can work out, do I want them individually or stitch them together? But I'm thinking now it would be good to get onto the next stage. Oh yeah, we will actually have to do this one because I will need that for the circle, so we will continue to do this one over here. Let me find where I put my thread. Where did my thread go? Oh no, I put it back in my container. I got so excited about my container that I popped it all the way back in there. Okay, so just let's get this one done. So again, it's just the same theory. You don't even have to knot the end. You can actually knot it as you go. So I'm going to just pop through. I'll hold the end once I get it pulled through. So I'll just hold that with my finger, and then you can actually do a knot with your first stitch. I think this is actually how they traditionally do it with English paper piecing rather than knotting your thread first. So I can actually just tie a knot by passing my needle through my thread here, and that will make a nice little knot. Let me just make sure I'm not catching though. So that's now knotted, and I'll just do a couple more stitches there to make sure it's nicely anchored. And then we'll come over, I can get rid of that tail because I don't need that now. I should be using my little scissors rather than my gigantic scissors. So Travis and I went out for a lovely walk today along a walk called Cherry Lane, I think it's called. It's about probably an hour and a half, 2 hour round trip walk along the beautiful river, Ovens River. And Travis had lots of swims, so he was enjoying first day of spring, but he even swims in winter up here. He loves it, loves the river, loves the water. Absolutely adores it. He was so exhausted when we got home. He just sat in his beanbag. He did not even get up to come and investigate what I was having for lunch today. He did have his own lunch when we got home, but he was absolutely exhausted. But I took him out a little while ago. We went into town because I needed to get some of the fabulous Bright pies. They make an amazing roast lamb with mint sort of gravy style pie that just tastes like a lamb roast. It is delicious. So you just roast up some veggies to have with it, and you feel like you're having a lamb roast with all the trimmings. So I got some of those, and they sell them sort of unbaked, so they're all sort of assembled obviously with their pastry and everything, but you can freeze them and take them home and then just bake them at your leisure. So they are absolutely delicious. So we'll probably have that for dinner one night while we're here, a nice easy dinner, and we'll take some back to Melbourne with us too, freeze them up, and they'll travel home fine. I'll probably get some for, it's my mum's birthday soon, and Father's Day as well, so I need to take some goodies home to Mum and Dad too. Seeing I'm away for both of those occasions. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just doing the anchoring stitches at either end, and then just the little running stitch down the fabric. And don't worry if the fabric pulls a tiny bit like it did there. That's all going to be on the back, and it's all going to be anchored down because you'll be stitching these pieces down. Can you hear the birds outside? I'm not sure how well these microphones pick up the sounds, but coming into, what time is it now? Coming into 5 o'clock. They are all flying around. Let's put my needle off to the side. I will grab my knitting needle. I'll give it actually a quick iron just to loosen it up a bit. I think it does definitely help just to, yeah, make it a bit easier to. Sorry, I'll probably make the table move a bit, which the camera is anchored to while I'm just doing this. So apologies for any jiggling around. Okay. Now we can loosen up underneath as well. So you can actually hear when it's loosening, you get just that little sound of the glue just lifting away. Just make sure it's come away fully from this side. I think there's still one little spot that's just a little bit attached here. Okay. And we just stick our just give it a gentle tug from that end. Gentle tug from that end, put it back in our little template holder. So if you get a little end that's poked through there and sort of pulled back in, all you need to do is get your little implement, in this case my little wooden needle, And then you just get it back into shape, and then I'll give it a quick little iron like that. Just get the edges to sit back down flat again. And there you go, perfect little circular piece with nicely shaped, nice distance between the two sides. So I'll put that in my little tin, and we can come back to this. So actually I don't need to put them in my tin, it actually belongs over here. So with the circle, all you have to do is just, it will take you a little bit of time to get it arranged exactly in place. And what I usually do is just work out, I fold it into quarters, and then I'll start my first piece with this piece folded in as well. So let me just show you, I've actually just tacked that down, but yeah, and I'll leave that down, I'll leave that stuck down. So I just used a bit of Yoo-hoo glue to hold that in place. And then I just arrange them around. And once I've got them arranged and where they need to be, I use my friction marker and just put some little markings in, because it means then if they get shifted around, I can get them back to sit where they need to. So you can see I've got little markings as a little guide for where they need to be positioned. And I'm just interspacing the two different colours together. That's got to come round and down a smidge more. And so yeah, you just have to sort of just work to get them sitting just where you want them to be. Just right. And once you're happy with it, you can put little markings on either side. So that when you come to stick them down, you can get them, stick and then stitch them down. I just put a tiny little dab of Yoo-hoo glue just to hold them in place while I do my stitching. But I'll come back to that because that's probably not going to be that exciting to watch me stitch all the way around. Basically, I'll just be doing a little overcast stitch just to catch the very, very edges of them. And hold them in place. But I thought you might like to see me stitch together the hexagon. So I'll just get myself, I can start with that piece of thread. I'll have to rethread part of the way through. So I arrange the hexagon the way I want it, and then I just start with two pieces. And again, I don't need to tie the thread. I can just come through and just catch the very little corner pieces. Oh, that one, that does actually have a little knot in the end, so I won't do the other way of knotting it. And then I'm just going to work my way along and just catch a tiniest little bit of them. So you could use a neutral coloured thread for this. Sometimes I use, have I got it in here? No, I think that's my more golden one. I've got one that's more just a natural coloured one. It must be in my other container of threads, but I'm just going to use this burgundy colour because I think it coordinates quite well with the piece. And I don't mind if you can just see a couple of the tiny little stitches, but they end up pretty minute because, as you can see, I'm only just catching the edge of both. Oops, just managed to unthread my needle. Always the way. I know Corinne's been saying, can someone invent a needle that doesn't unthread itself? There'd be definitely a market for that, Corinne. Okay, so as you can see, that's now stitched together. And what I then do is pick the next one that I want to be joined from the centre. So if I want this one like that, which I do, I then just position that on the edge where I want to be stitching it on. And proceed to stitch that. Oops, try not to stab myself. It's always a good thing. Just get them, you want to just have them as straight as possible because they'll just help you when you're putting the shape together. Although I found these are pretty forgiving. I was really scared that I'd not be able to kind of do English paper piecing because it looked like a very precise science, and my stitching is anything but precise at the best of times. But they're pretty good. There's even tinier ones, which I've been using the even smaller size than this for my Stitchery swap squares, because those Stitchery swap squares are only 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres. So they're actually very small when you make those. Okay. So as you can see, as you work around, you get your little petals stitched on. So I'm then going to take the next one, work out which way I want it to go. And so most of these fabrics here are from the Bonheur de Jour. Bonheur de Jour range from French General Moda Fabrics, a little charm pack. I found the charm squares, which are the tiny, small little square ones like this. You can get 4 hexies out of that, which is great. It's a good way to celebrate your, and again, if you've got small scraps, you can also use those, but I just particularly like the Bonheur de Jour range, and it goes well with my Burgundy Bonheur French-inspired piece. So yeah, really excited. I'm really happy I've finally decided to use the blanket. I didn't want to cut the blanket up, and I hadn't kind of decided what base I wanted, and I was worried that the pieces I was making wouldn't fit within the sort of original sizing that I was thinking for the framed piece. So I'm happy I've now got a plan and I can get started and I think I will start adding things onto the blanket, because I'll have plenty of space to play with, and I can always come back and fill in gaps as well. So I'm enjoying sort of seeing people that have actually started putting all their bits onto their bases rather than saving it all up to the end. I think I've got enough of a sense of where the project's heading. But I don't mind. I always find I can kind of make things work anyway. I don't stress too much about it. As you stitch, the ideas come to you. You work it out as you go. So again, I'm just doing the next petal. Right, and we'll just come round, and which one was the next one? This one here. I usually like to kind of, if I'm using similar ones, I'll sort of group them so they're across from each other. I think that looks quite nice. You can make these so they're all kind of the same petal fabrics. I like to make the mixed ones because that way you get to have all your favourite fabrics, or at least more of your favourite fabrics, in one place. And it gives a really lovely, I guess, sort of that scrappy vintage look. Which I kind of like the idea with this, this woolen blanket that's travelled through war-torn countries, made its way to Australia, survived not being thrown out in hard rubbish collection, and is now going to be given new life with sort of layering and on top of it, but still retaining the integrity of the blanket underneath. And you'll be able to see the blanket on the other side as well, because that will be, the underside will still be the pure blanket look, complete with its sort of stains and marks, and it's all been well washed obviously, but it's got the markings of the travels that it's had. I just think it's incredible, like, to have something that came from your homeland and travelled all the way with you. But I think for Betty it was quite a obviously a traumatic experience to flee your home. I mean, we just can't unimaginable. I hope no one here has had to flee their home. Certainly not something that I've had to imagine or contemplate in my lifetime. Yeah, and Betty was telling us about the refugee camp they came to in Australia, and there were apparently snakes everywhere. So that was quite a shock to the system. She said even in going into the showers or the toilets, there'd be snakes in there. So that would not have been fun. So I think originally they'd wanted to migrate to New Zealand, but luckily they came to Australia, otherwise might never have met Alex. Well, in fact, Betty might never have met Silvano, and Alex and Max would never have been born. Travis is listening to me because he's hearing the names that I'm saying, and he's like, "You're talking about my people?" Because we've got Max up here, haven't we? Max is skiing with Alex, isn't he, Travis? Yeah, and Silvano. Nono's gone up the mountain today too. Yep, Travis has come around to talk to me, probably because he's also wanting to let me know that it's a certain time of day as well, but he can just wait a little bit because it's not time to make his DINNER yet. I can't even say that because he actually knows what I'm spelling out when I say that. He's a very bright Labrador. So at this point, you've got all your petals stitched on. I'll then just show you on one of the petals what I do next, and show you one of the fabulous little great things about these templates as well is that they are fully bendable. So at this point, you can start to then stitch down your petals to each other. And so you do the same technique of just stitching along the very edge. So you're just picking up the tiniest little bits of fabric. If you miss one fabric on one side, that's fine. And it's all going to be stitched down anyway. So you're really just trying to get them sort of, sitting where you want them. Again, just make sure you've got them as positioned as much as possible where they're meant to be. And so you go down between each of these petals. Like this. And then at this point, what I do to get around to the next petal, so if I'm wanting to now stitch this one down, is I work my way around. So I come over here and I put in little holding stitches. This will help when you then flick out the plastic templates which are still inside of here without catching here. So you come around and put little stitches in. That's Travis having a big drink of water from his water bowl over there. Sounds like he's having a swim, but really he's drinking. So you're putting little stitches in the corner to hold the corners in place, which will help when, I'll show you in a moment, we can flick out the template out of one of these just to show you. Don't have to worry about doing this on the centre because the centre one will actually be held. Although I just noticed the centre one I'd already done the stitching on anyway. I must have done that last night while I was watching TV. It's a very relaxing thing to do while you're doing that to make your little hexagon templates. Travis is trying to give me nudges now. He's like, "Mum, I want your attention." So this video might be finishing soon because he'll start to talk to me too, no doubt. So as you can see, I've now stitched all the way around here. I'm going to just put a little tie-off knot. If you were continuing on, you'd just basically at this point, you'd continue rather than coming over to here, you'd then do your stitching down along this side next, and then you'd follow round and stitch down all the sides in that same way. So you get all the way around with everything stitched down. But let me just show you how easily the templates come out. So I'll take out this one over here. I'll take out this one. So again, actually I might just give it a quick iron, do my usual trick. Quick iron just to make it nice and supple. And then I'm going to get my knitting needle. I'm going to run it around. And then I'm going to run it underneath as well. So the great thing is you've got that little hole with these templates, and you can be quite robust with the templates because they won't break, or they won't. And with these ones, just flicks out easy as pie. And there you go, you've got your beautiful little hexagon template. So I will off camera, because you've probably seen enough of the process, I will off camera get all of this stitched down, so all the little petals are stitched in place, and then that will be ready for the center. And then what I'll be doing here, I'll actually just show you. I'll take these pieces off. I've got my little markings, so I know where to line them up. I'll take this one off, and I'll get a bit more of my thread, and I'll just show you the little overcast stitch that I'm going to do to stitch these ones down. And then I can do that off camera as well, and we can come back tomorrow and do some couching down to do the lettering. I might even make a start on that if I can tonight, and we can finish that off tomorrow. So again, just putting a knot in the end. And so yeah, I've just got this stuck down with a tiny bit of Yoo-hoo glue, and what I'm going to do is just pop up from the back. And then I'm just going to do tiny little stitches, just capturing the edge, and you can just go back in, and you can either just sort of, come up from the back, and you don't even need to do them super close together. It just needs to be enough to hold that little edge in place. And so you'll just work your way around all of the pieces. Just anchoring them in place. And obviously if you're stitching it onto another one, you could possibly capture both pieces in the one stitch, but as simple as just little, almost, invisible stitches, just catching a tiny bit of the fabric and just anchoring it down. But the Yoo-hoo glue just means you're not having to deal with pins. So I am a fan of just a tiny little dob of Yoo-hoo glue, and it's sort of, you can definitely, if you really needed to, you can easily peel it up and peel it off. It doesn't form a strong, close bond. You can still peel the piece up, which is handy if you need to. So I will go away and I will, get the pieces stitched down, finish stitching my hexie, and then tomorrow we'll come back and we will couch down the word joie de vivre, so joy of life. So I hope you enjoyed watching that. I better go and make some dinner for Travis, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye everyone.